Good afternoon, good day. Thank you so much for joining today the information session on the GC8 grant making and investment priorities request and program continuation submission. We are going to start. My name is Alona Alba. I'm specialist in the operational efficiency team. And today I will be walking you through this information session and will share with you some of the changes and updates that you would be expecting to see with the grant making process. And we will be also showing you the system demonstration with the changes and updates that you would be able to access in the partner portal. So before I start, I would like to cover some of the logistics and inform you on the following option for you that is available for non-English languages. So we have the option for you to have the info session be simultaneously translated. And in order for you to do that, as you can see presented in the screen here, you would need to click on the three dots available under your Teams screen and select language and speech. Once you clicked language and speech, at the bottom of the screen, you will see a little icon here with the language settings. Once you have clicked on the language settings, then you can select your preferred language. So you can update it now before we start. Another important point is that we will ask you to raise any questions that you have by putting them in the chat. And we have a team that will collect those questions, and we will answer and cover those questions at the end of the information session. All right, I think we're ready to start now. So thank you so much for joining us today. As mentioned, we will be presenting the GC8 grant making process, investment priorities request, and program continuation submission pathways. We'll be also presenting to you a system functionalities through a short video demonstration, and we'll explain to you some of the key steps that the PRs will be requested to perform for proceeding with the submission and the review in the partner portal. And we will be also covering the submission pathways as investment priorities request and program continuation so that you would have the information with respect to those. So before we start, we'd like to give you an update on the GC8, the grant cycle 8 at a glance. So what does it mean? What are the key changes that you would expect to see? And we will be also giving you an update on the co-financing. And there are some changes that you would expect to see with respect to the co-financing and the requirements that would be applicable to you. We'll then cover the GC8 application approaches and submission pathways. So we'll walk you through a bit more detail on what to expect for those. Then we'll focus on the grant making following grant ready and classic funding request submission pathways. It could have been that you have already started working on your performance framework, on your budget and other documents as part of the grant ready funding request submission pathway, and then you would be now continuing to develop those forms and deliverables further. So we will be walking you on the next steps, what to expect there. As mentioned, we're equally covering the investment priorities request and program continuation submission pathways. And again, if you have any questions with respect to the slides or the information that you are receiving as part of this information session, please raise them in the chat, and then the team will be addressing those in the Q&A section below. So we'll have that sometime at the end of the session. All right, so let's start with the overview. So where we are today and the grant cycle 8, and specifically the grant making. So first of all, we are now entering a new phase, which is grant making. The funding request for some of you may be in progress or have been already reviewed by the technical review panel. And we are now starting the process of grant making. And what grant making is really about is to ensure that the funding applications are translated into disbursement and implementation-ready quality grants, and they are positioned to deliver the strategic objectives and achieve their targeted impact. And so, as you have been working with the Global Fund country teams and partners to engage in preparing the funding application, you have been also already focusing and working on the strategic shifts to increase the sustainable program design and support effective transition. We have been covering the information about the strategic shifts in the previous information sessions, and the materials are available at the Global Fund page. But in a nutshell, the strategic shifts are focusing on supporting effective and predictable transitions from Global Fund financing, rigorous prioritization of investments, integrated systems for health and service delivery, and community health systems, sustainable financing, and of course, with the key focus to optimize domestic resources and effective co-financing. What we will be covering today is key changes with respect to the grant-making process. So how do we ensure that the quality and timely grants are signed within 2026 compressed timelines? How we are focusing on the submissions, and what are the key changes that you would expect to see with those adjustments? So first of all, as we will be showing it to you today, we'll see there are fewer requirements and overall streamlined guidance. So what that means is that the grant-making process has become more streamlined. You will see fewer requirements in order for the grant-making deliverables to be completed and submitted to the Global Fund. And we also have introduced differentiated submission pathways. Those are tailored to country context, and specific details will be coming later as part of this information session. We have also introduced an optimized modular framework with rationalized modules, interventions, and indicators. And you have been working as part of the preparation of the forms and deliverables to the Global Fund. You have already had a chance to see the modular framework as part of that process. Now, when it comes to the grant making, we are optimizing the process there as well. And how does it come in what changes you will see in the coming months? So first of all, online completion of the performance framework of the HPMT and the co-financing online form. And I will touch upon those in a minute, what those are and what are the expectations around them. Also, we're introducing the on-screen summary budget visualization for the PRs to be able to access their summary budget and see how the budget that they have been working on Excel translates in the summary budget already in the partner portal at the time when the principal recipient is working to submit the forms and the deliverables to the Global Fund. We're also working on strengthening the data quality checks for all core documents. So what that means is principal recipients will be preparing the performance framework, their budgets, their HPMT, and at the moment that those forms have been finalized, there will be a series of checks that will be automatically performed and done to ensure that the data is consistent and all the required information has been provided. And if there are some data points that have been missed or are inconsistent, there will be flags to inform you what are the next steps in order for you to perform to address those data quality checks. We'll also cover that shortly. Lastly, there's automated forms handling and features such as history tracking. What that means is that the forms are evolving, so we're introducing more functionalities that enable the principal recipients to work online, as mentioned in the online forms paragraph, but at the same time, we are looking into optimizing the way that the information is positioned in the form and how this information is also correlating between different forms. And of course, we have the history tracking, which allows the Global Fund to see what were the changes that have been made since the last submission already in the online form, which of course simplifies and streamlines the review process. Now, if I will move us to the next slide. So we are briefly touching base here on the partner portal updates. And specifically, when we started to work with the partner portal, some of you have already engaged with your CCMs as part of the grant-ready funding request. But we really wanted to take an opportunity here to recall and to understand what really those key changes that will be coming as part of the partner portal in grant making. So what is the partner portal? The partner portal is the external facing global fund platform for communication and sharing of deliverables between the in-country actors, the CCM, the PR, the LFA as applicable, and the Global Fund Secretariat. So what you see here are illustrations of some of those examples where you might have already worked as part of the funding request application, or you're already working as part of your grant making process. So what is the key change and what is the key benefit that the partner portal brings as part of the grant making process is, first of all, the single entry point for the principal recipient. So what that really means is that you have single data repository for all the application documents that you have. You have been also working with your CCMs and in-country stakeholders to coordinate the deliverables and coordinate finalization of the deliverables. And what is really important is that the partner portal will be your single entry point for all those deliverables to be captured. And of course, just as a reminder, the submission is expected to take place in the partner portal. So you would be expecting to attach all the required documents, ensure that the data quality checks have been completed, and of course proceed with the submission. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now, when it comes to additional benefits of the partner portal, we're looking into increased visibility. So what that really means is that the documents that you have been working with your CCMs, for example, as part of the grant ready funding request, the CCMs were able to also see the documents that you have submitted as part of the application. And now, as you are working on your documents as part of grant making, that visibility continues. So that means that there's always a reference point also for you and your team members to go back to in the partner portal. And on every new step that has been accomplished, of course, there will be a notification informing you of completion, or also informing you of any required action steps that you would need to take. And lastly, the key benefit of the partner portal and engaging through the partner portal is ensuring that the forms and deliverables that have been prepared are with quality and the data is accurate and complete. And as mentioned, there are data quality checks that are automated, that are designed and intended to facilitate that final review also from your team's side and ensure that the information that has been provided is consistent and accurate. Moving us next, I would like to take the opportunity to remind you that in order to access the partner portal, you need to ensure that your team members or maybe yourself have the right access to the partner portal. So PR's access are managed through the grant entity data, and ensuring that the access rights are accurate is crucial to ensure that, first of all, you have the option to access the partner portal, but even more that your team has the option to submit those forms to the Global Fund. You might have been already working in the partner portal, so the concept of access rights might not be new, but I would like just to take a moment to remind us what those are. So first of all, the editors, those are team members or maybe even yourself who are able to access and complete and attach documents. So work on those deliverables and provide an updates to those documents. Submitters have the same rights as editors, so they can also access, complete, and attach documents, but they can also submit the application package to the Global Fund. And what is really, really important is that we recommend to have at least 2 submitters that are defined with access to your partner portal profile, because in order for you to ensure that if the person is on leave, you always have a backup and you're able to submit your deliverables on time. Now, if you are not sure what the access rights are for your team, or whether you have an access right specifically defined for you or your team members, you will be asked to ensure that you have the right access rights to the GED or grant entity data application in the Global Fund Partner Portal. And you can submit a change request to create, update, or deactivate an organization or contact as needed. And the information and detailed information on how to perform those steps is available and will be reshared with you after this presentation as the slides that we are presenting today. Lastly, what is important is that you would need to ensure that your access rights to the portal are updated for GC8. What that means is that you have, maybe you have the same team members as have been working on the past deliverables, or maybe you have your new team members who are joining for the grant making process. So you would need to ensure that you have reviewed all those access rights and the right team members having the right access in the partner portal. All right, so now I would like to start with some of the key changes looking into the forms. So we start with online performance framework. So if you look into the performance framework itself and comparing it to the online performance framework in terms of content, you will see that the overall structure is unchanged. There are new online form tabs that will be accessible by the principal recipient in the partner portal for each of the grants that you will be requested to complete the performance framework for, but its content itself remains unchanged. So the tabs are similar in terms of the information that is being asked. So now looking into the more details of the online performance framework itself, first of all, you will see that there are quite a few options that are already providing you access with the pre-population of the data. For example, once you have pre-selected the modules and interventions, you will see that your indicators, respective indicators in the tabs, will already contain the information pertaining to those modules. So it really allows you to move faster and produce the updates faster and also in line with the information that you have selected. This also improves the continuity from funding request to grant making. And if you have been working with your CCM as part of the grant ready funding request submission pathway, the performance framework you have worked on is not lost. You are continuing to work of that performance framework, making the necessary adjustment as part of the grant making process. So that means that you are having access to the information, and you're not starting from scratch, of course, but you're moving faster, and you can update those indicators or other information points as needed faster. Now, you would also see that there are summary of indicators in the overview page. So this is a nice visual guide that has been added in order for you to be able to access and see the definition of the targets and have those visual aids if you're engaging in discussion with your in-country stakeholders. So those are very, very useful. Now, we have also added pre-assigned data type for targets. So this has been aligned with the indicator guidance sheet in order for you to also complete the information faster and really take the guesswork out when you're working on your performance framework. The automatic coding of custom indicators has been also introduced. So this really allows you to work just focusing on the content rather than on the coding of custom indicators. So this has been addressed. And of course, the disaggregations are now displayed in line with the respective indicators. So you really don't need to click away from your indicators, but rather you have one place when you fill in all the information required. Now, when it comes to the functionality itself, we have spoken briefly about the data quality checks, but also I will touch upon the real-time calculation when it comes to calculation of the percentages and annual targets. So this has been all automated, and you will be guided through the process when you will be completing your performance framework. You will be going through tab by tab, and you will see which information has been already pre-populated, of course, linked to the previous indicators or modules that have previously introduced. Now, data quality checks, again, the concept of data quality checks is not really new. You might have been already working as part of the PR reporting on those. And here in the performance framework, we're really focusing on ensuring that when you submit the performance framework, the HPMT, the budget to the Global Fund, the entry has been all completed. You don't have any missing data points. And of course, the information is accurate. So if there are any inconsistencies, those will be flagged to you. Lastly, there's an Excel supporting document that is available for offline collaboration. And what that means is that at any point of time when you're working on your online PF and you would like to take a snapshot of that PF, you can take a snapshot through that supporting Excel by generating that supporting Excel. And if you would like to have conversation with your in-country stakeholders and you prefer to take that Excel with you, you always can. However, please remember and be reminded that the Excel cannot be imported back into the system. So any changes that you have made as part of those conversations, you'll have to go back to the online performance framework, fill those changes in there, and ensure, of course, that you have completed the data quality checks. All right, moving to the budget. So budget here, what we will see is the structure in terms of the content has also remained unchanged. So we have 5 tabs of information, 5 tabs that you will see in the budget. It will be completed in Excel, and it will be also required to be submitted in the partner portal. Now, when we look into the content itself, there was an optimization of the non-health product tab that was done, and this translated in introduction of the total cash flow and additional source of funding options through UQD and climate and health, and a removal of unit cost, unit of measure, and total quantity columns, which will allow you to enter the information in a more simplified way, and of course streamline overall the type of information that you would require to collect and introduce in the budget. Now we're also looking into the tab that is specifically designed for health product list focus tab. So this is only applicable for focused portfolios, and the user links the total cost to the non-health product tab using cost groupings 4 and 7 to the core main budget. And this is specifically designed for focused portfolios, and will cover the information with respect to the health product management tab in a second, which is required for high impact and core. Now, when it comes to the functionality improvement, so first of all, as we briefly mentioned, there is auto import of the budgets. So what does it mean? When you have completed your budget Excel and you're ready to attach it in the partner portal, there are several of checks and automatic steps that are taking place in the partner portal. So the first is the import of the information that you have entered. So what that means is the information that you have introduced in the budget is aggregated in the summary budget, and it is immediately visualized for you in the partner portal. And that summary budget will be eventually one of those deliverables that you will be working on to finalize the grant confirmation and sign the grant. So having this visual aid and having the summary budget already available for you in the partner portal facilitates the review, of course, and the subsequent data triangulation as needed. We're also looking into introduction of the data quality checks. As mentioned, the concept of data quality check is not really new, but here we're also looking to really help the team, help your team members when they're completing the budget, to ensure that the budget has been correctly completed. There are no missing entry points or errors, and if there are any identified, the data quality checks will be triggered, and you will be guided on the resolution of those. Of course, important to note that all the data quality checks have to be resolved on both performance framework, on the budget, and on the HPMT as well, before submitting the forms and deliverables to the Global Fund. Now moving to the online HPMT. So this is the key change that was introduced also with the GC8. The HPMT, as we previously know, has been handled separately through the Excel. Now we're moving to the online HPMT form, which the principal recipients will be requested to complete. And this form is accessible for each of the grants that require the HPMT. Some of you may have already started working on it as part of the grant ready funding request submission pathway, but what is really, really important to flag that you will have to submit your HPMT as part of your Global Fund package submission for grant making. So you have to ensure that your HPMT is completed with all the information that is required and submitted together. Now, the HPMT itself is in the partner portal itself, and it is being handled in a specific application called HPMT. And there you will see an enhanced user experience. So this is again for the first time that the HPMT is online, and there are key benefits that you will see. First of all, there's really entry of one information point at the time. There is no reliance on the complex backend calculation of the heavy Excel that we had before. And one of the most important benefits is, of course, the simplified budget calculation, because when it comes to ensuring that the information in the HP is adequately captured in adequately and correctly captured in the budget, you will have the improved visibility, you will have the information on all the parameters that you have entered in the HPMT. And of course, you have the budget that you will be triangulating. You'll have the visualization of the summary budget, as we just mentioned. So that allows you to complete the information faster and a more accurate way. I briefly spoke about the integration. This is more related on how the information points are connected. They're not necessarily at the front end visualization, but at the same point, all the information that you enter is coordinated with the latest product list and reference prices. So it really helps you to see how the entry that you are making in HPMT is also impacting the financials for the budget. And lastly, the visibility. So when it comes to the data entry that you complete at the grant making, the HPMT continues through the journey of the grant, through the course of implementation and revision if it will be required. So you would be always having access to the HPMT that you have worked on originally as part of grant making, and adapted and updated as needed, depending on, of course, the country context. And of course, the final and important point is the data quality checks, as I have briefly mentioned. So those are also introduced in the HPMT, and we're ensuring that those data quality checks are supporting you through the way of data entry, and they're flagging to you the information that needs to be corrected or updated as needed. Lastly, the data quality checks themselves. You will have two types of data quality check. One is the error, which will allow you to go back to the missing data and will guide you what exactly the type of information that is inaccurate or missing. And then the warning, which will flag to you that there is some inconsistencies or potential error that has been identified, and you will be guided on how to address the data issue prior to submitting, or if there are certain reasons for why those inconsistencies are valid, you will be required to provide a justification comment in the warning in order for you to proceed further. As a reminder, you will not be able to submit with error messages that are unresolved, and you will require to review and address errors and warning messages and provide justifications for the warnings as needed before submitting to the Global Fund. I will now move us to the next chapter, which is the co-financing. The co-financing has been first of all revisited, and we are looking in introduction of the updated operational policy and how this operational policy is translated in practice. So first of all, there are some strategic key important aims of the co-financing policy that I take opportunity to remind here, is that the Global Fund's co-financing approach is designed to support and encourage additional investments in health and the national responses, as well as increased investments in specific programmatic interventions critical to programmatic impact. So we're looking into more strategic, differentiated use of co-financing to support financial sustainability and transition. And those are key pieces in the GC8 strategic shifts, as we have briefly covered in the beginning of the session. The expectations and the requirements of the co-financing are set out in the beginning of each allocation cycle, and they have been communicated to the countries with the allocation letters. We recommend you to refer to the Transition and Co-Financing Technical Brief and Co-Financing OPN for more details on those elements. Now, looking into how those co-financing commitments are translated and how we capture those in the Global Fund processes, and we're looking into introduction of the new co-financing online form. And this process has been designed for captured government co-financing commitments during grant making in grant cycle 8. So this is really a new form that has been specifically created for that process, and PRs that were designated by the CCMs, they will enter the government's commitments into the online form. Then there is a standardized annex that will be generated from the online form, and that annex will be attached to the commitment letter for signature by the Ministry of Finance or other relevant government budget authority. And the signed commitment letter will be submitted, it must be submitted before the first grant for your country is reviewed for approval by the GAC. Okay, so that is the key change that will be introduced. And now with this summary slide, we'll briefly go through the key process steps with respect to the co-financing commitments. So first of all, the allocation letter have been shared and co-financing commitments and requirements have been communicated already. The country team and the CCM agree which principal recipient and grant will report on the co-financing. The health finance specialist sends the co-financing online form to the principal recipient, and this will be taking place in the partner portal. So there will be information flow that will allow you to enter co-financing commitments into the online form and submit for review. Please note that the Global Fund can request changes at that point of time. As a next step, once the co-financing commitment online form has been submitted, Health Finance Specialist reviews the co-financing commitments and shares commitment letter with the principal recipient to be signed by the government. And as mentioned, this step is very, very important in terms of timelines because the principal recipient will need to ensure that this form has been signed and the letter has been signed and attached before the GAC review. So this is very, very important. And of course, once the process has been completed, the co-financing commitment letter is ready for the GAC. What the co-financing commitment form would look like is 5 tabs that have been introduced, including one for each co-financing requirement, as it is relevant for your country context. And you will see that there are different data points that have been asked for you to complete. Now, the data collection focuses on reporting of the GC7 Grant Cycle 7 realization and GC8 co-financing commitment amounts. Reporting is done in local currency, and the amounts are converted to allocation currency based on the exchange rate per cycle indicated in the Overview tab. The form captures commitments for disease eligible for the Global Fund funding only, and as per co-financing OPN that we recommend you to also refer to, only low-income countries and low-middle-income countries submit government health expenditure data. This tab does not appear for countries in other income categories, so this will be automatically predefined for your country context. In terms of next steps, after submission, the amounts are compared against the GC7 commitments and GC8 total minimum requirements to assess alignment with co-financing requirements and Global Fund policies. If the co-financing requirements set out in the allocation letter are satisfied, a commitment letter is drafted and shared with principal recipient to facilitate signing by government authorities. And as mentioned, the key next step is to ensure that the signature has been completed and finalized before submission to the GAC. In the next step, we'll show you a short system video on how the principal recipient will complete co-financing online form in the partner portal.
To begin, the principal recipient clicks the link provided in the email or logs into the partner portal using their credentials. Open the Financial Management app and select Co-financing Commitments. This opens the Co-financing Commitments form. The form contains 5 tabs. Overview provides general information about the form and where you enter the exchange rates for both the previous cycle, Grant Cycle 7, and the current cycle, Grant Cycle 8. Government health expenditure is visible only for low-income and lower middle-income countries. Here, you report disease-specific financing and enter co-financing realizations and commitments for the disease components for which the country has a global fund allocation. Disease-specific financing is where the principal recipient reports co-financing realizations and commitments by disease component. Programmatic intervention is used to report co-financing realizations and commitments for specific programmatic interventions. Finally, supporting documents is where any required documents can be attached before submission. Now we'll go through each of these tabs in more detail. The Overview tab provides summary information about the country, the status of the form, and the health finance focal points, should you require any guidance. It also shows which disease components are applicable for reporting. These determine what is displayed in both the disease-specific financing and programmatic intervention tabs. You can also see the allocation period, which in this example is GC8. At the bottom of the page, you will find the allocation currency and national currency. All reporting is completed in the national currency. The amounts are automatically converted into the allocation currency using the exchange rates entered on this tab. Now, navigate to the Government Health Expenditure tab. As mentioned earlier, this tab is only visible for low-income and lower middle-income countries. Here, you will see the financing information that must be reported. First, enter commitment realizations for GC7 using the reporting columns for each applicable year. If you scroll to the right, you will find the columns used to report commitments for GC8. Totals are calculated automatically. On the far right of the table, you will see the column for additional commitments since previous cycle, which compares the GC8 reported commitments against those realized during GC7. To enter information, first select the realization type for each GC7 and GC8 reporting year. The available options are realization, provisional realization, or budget. Whenever available, the Global Fund expects principal recipients to report actual realizations. Where realization data is not yet available, provisional realization or budget may be selected. Next, click Edit. All amounts must be entered in the national currency. The system will automatically convert these amounts into the allocation currency using the exchange rate entered on the Overview tab. Enter realization amounts for the GC7 period and commitment amounts for the GC8 period. Then click Save. Next, navigate to the Disease-Specific Financing tab. The form functions similarly to the previous tab. Here, the principal recipient reports realizations and commitments for both GC7 and GC8 by disease component. First, select the realization type for each year, and then click Edit. Enter the amounts in the national currency for each applicable disease component. Only components for which the country has a global fund allocation will be displayed. Once complete, click Save. If you scroll down, you can also view the converted amounts in the allocation currency. Next, open the Programmatic Intervention tab. Similar to the previous sections, the principal recipient reports realizations and commitments for GC7 and GC8. In this tab, however, reporting is completed by module and intervention. First, select the realization type for each year, and then click Edit. Before entering data, you must click the Add button at the top of the page to create a new row. For each entry, select a module and intervention, provide an activity description, and choose the appropriate cost input. You can then enter the relevant amounts for each reporting year across both the GC7 and GC8 periods. Click Save when you have finished. To add additional entries, repeat the process by clicking Edit and then Add to create a new row. As with the other tabs, all amounts are entered in the national currency and are automatically displayed in the allocation currency below. Next, navigate to the Supporting Documents tab. Here you can attach any supporting documents required to substantiate the information entered in the form. Once the form is complete and all required supporting documents have been attached, click Submit. A pop-up window will appear, allowing you to provide any additional context related to the information reported in the form. After entering any comments, click Submit. A confirmation message will appear indicating that the co-financing commitments have been successfully submitted to the Global Fund for review. The status displayed on the Overview tab will change to Global Fund to Review.
All right, so we're now going to start with the submission pathways overview for the funding request and grant making. As I have briefly mentioned in the beginning, there are several submission pathways that have been introduced for the grant cycle 8. The first, the program continuation submission, is really a simplified approach for continuing programs and grants with the TRP oversight. The PRs will submit grant documents with the CCM endorsement, leveraging the ongoing country dialogue. This submission pathway is by invitation only, and the applicable countries have been already informed of the invitation for those submission pathway. Another important distinction that we need to make is that the program continuation submission pathway is only applicable for high impact and core portfolios. Moving next, there are two submission pathways that some of you may have already worked on or are currently working on together with CCMs in your country. The first is the grant-ready funding request. And the grant-ready funding request allows the principal recipients to engage very early in the process and develop grant-level performance frameworks and budgets as part of the CCM's funding application, which advances the start of grant negotiation. The grant documents are finalized based on the TRP review and the recommendations, and then in the grant making, the PR continues to work on the documents and other deliverables required for grant making, of course, leveraging the TRP recommendations. When it comes to the classic funding request submission pathway, it's really the process that many of you have already worked on as previous grant cycles. And this is where the CCMs, they first develop all the funding request documents. They submit to the Global Fund, and following the TRP review, the grant making process is initiated and the grant documents are negotiated during grant making. This submission pathway is really suitable for the cases when there are significant changes to the programmatic scope or the implementation arrangements in the grants or the countries. Now, what is really, really important is that the principal recipients and the country teams, they start grant-making process as soon as possible upon the funding request submission to the TRP. So there is really no need to wait for the TRP review outcome to start grant-making and to wait for you to engage with your respective country teams and work on the required deliverables. Now, when it comes to the investment priorities request, this is a specific submission pathway that is applicable for the focus portfolios. And what it really represents is a streamlined engagement for the focus portfolios, which you expect to receive Global Fund financing beyond GC8 with TRP oversight. CCMs submit an investment priorities request, and the PRs then submit the grant documents with the CCM endorsement, leveraging ongoing country dialogue. Similarly to program continuation submission pathway, the investment priority request is by invitation only. And it also begins immediately after the allocation letter is shared, similarly to program continuation submission pathway. Moving next, we're now looking into the grant making process following grant ready and classic funding request and the investment priorities request and program continuation submission pathways in more detail. The key steps for grant making following the grant ready or classic funding requests are very, very similar, and they're outlined here in the graph. So first of all, the grant making process starts when the funding application is submitted to TRP, and we encourage you to liaise with your country team stakeholders if you haven't done yet so as soon as possible, so that you can start working on the deliverables and continue the country dialogue and negotiate the grant. When the PR completes the deliverables, develops and submit all the GC8 grant documents to the Global Fund in the partner portal, the Global Fund receives the deliverables and receives those documents and start to review them and prepares the submission to GAC. Please be informed that at that stage, Global Fund can request changes and modifications to those documents, and equally to request the LFA review where it will be deemed as required. Once the documents have been finalized for GAC, the GAC review will take place, and there will be further details to be shared at later stage on how the GAC review will be formalized. And following the GAC recommendation to the board and board approval, there are finalizing steps for the country team and the PR, which is the grant signing. And following the grant signing, the implementation period will start at the implementation period start date. Moving next to the program continuation submission pathway. Here in the light yellow color, you will see the key changes compared to the regular grant making process, and I will walk you through them shortly. So first of all, the allocation letter is shared and the program split is communicated. And at that point of time, by invitation only, the PR starts to develop GC8 grant documents. They're doing so in the partner portal, and with respective guidance in and the materials that are requested, the PR completes the information, completes those deliverables, following by the CCM review and endorsement of the grant documents. Once that step has been completed, PR submits the grant documents to the Global Fund, and the Global Fund reviews the grant documents and prepares for submission to GAC. Similarly here, in that step, the Global Fund can request changes to the documents and request LFA review where it will be deemed as required. Following that process step, the GAC review is taking place with the TRP as a partner in the review process. Following completion of the GAC review, the grant confirmation is being prepared for signature, and of course, following the board approval, the grant signing process is completed and the implementation starts. As a final submission pathway, the investment priorities So here again, we're outlining the key changes compared to the regular grant making process in pale yellow color, as you can see here. So covering the key milestones, first of all, the allocation letter is being shared, the program split has been communicated, and as we mentioned, this submission pathway is only taking place by invitation only, and the TRP pre-shaping takes place immediately after that. The CCM documents country dialogue and shares CCM investment priorities with principal recipients and country team by email. Following that step, the PR will develop grant documents in the partner portal. The CCM will review and endorse the grant documents, and once that step has been completed, PR will submit the grant documents and investment priorities to the Global Fund. Global Fund will review the documents, submit to GAC, and similarly here, in case any changes will be required, the Global Fund will inform you of those, and as needed, the LFA review can be requested. The GAC review will take place with the TRP as a partner in the review process, and following board approval and grant signing, the implementation will start at the implementation period start date. Moving next, this is the key summary of the required deliverables for submission pathways. Please refer to the OPN on designing funding request and sign quality grants for the details for each of the submission pathways and the portfolio categories to specifically review and inform yourself about the requested deliverables for your specific submission pathway. Moving next, we'll now present you a demonstration video on how principal recipient will complete grant documents in the partner portal. Important note here is that the PR submission of grant making documents to the Global Fund via the partner portal is not yet enabled, and the PRs will be notified separately when this feature becomes available. Conditions for submission, such as reviewing and resolving data quality checks, are explained in a separate video that is forthcoming. So now I'm giving the floor to my colleagues to share the video with you.
When you click on the link in the email notification to log into the partner portal, you'll be taken to the grant making module where you'll see all grants that have been shared with the PR. For each grant, the implementation period start and end dates are displayed, along with the status and, when available, the Grant Approvals Committee meeting date. Click on a grant to open it. At the top of the page, you'll see key grant details, implementation period, currency, allocation utilization period dates, and prospective implementation period dates. This page contains 4 tabs. The first is the Download tab. Here, the PR can download the budget as an Excel file. The second is the Performance Framework tab, where the PR completes the form directly online. The Performance Framework contains 7 subtabs. Here the PR will select modules, interventions, and indicators that are linked to the modular framework. The third is the Budget tab, where the PR can review and resolve any data quality issues identified during budget import. There is also a visualization of the summary budget. The fourth is the Attach and Submit tab. This is where the completed budget is attached to the partner portal and the final grant forms are submitted for review. Under the Performance Framework tab, the Overview tab displays the implementation period start and end dates, as well as the reporting periods for the 3-year grant. The dates shown are based on the implementation period start and end dates, as well as the reporting frequency selected. The dates shown here will be applied across the whole performance framework. Below is the Principal Recipients section, where the PR name is displayed. Next is the Module section. To add a module, click the Add button, select a module from the drop-down menu, then click Save and Close. All modules, interventions, and indicators in the drop-down menus come from the modular framework. In the Intervention section, click the Add button and select a module from the drop-down menu. Then select an intervention. Then click Save and Close. You only need to select an intervention when work plan tracking measures are applicable to the grant. The Goals tab is where the PR adds the grant's goals. Click Add, enter the goal in the description box. Language fields are available in the box below. Click Save and Close. In the Objectives tab, the PR adds the grant objectives. Click Add, enter the objective in the description box. Language fields are available in the box below. Click Save and Close. In the Coverage Indicators tab, click Add. Select the module and then select a coverage indicator from the drop-down menu, or add a custom indicator. Click Save and Continue. A pop-up window will appear where you can add the indicator details. In this example, we'll use a coverage indicator that uses a numerator and denominator. Note that the Impact Indicators and Outcome Indicators tabs function the same way. Select the scope of targets. Choose the baseline year and enter the numerator and denominator. The percentage is calculated automatically. For the targets, enter the numerator and denominator for each reporting period. And add baseline source and comments. Language fields are available in the corresponding boxes. If the indicator includes disaggregated data, you can include this information below. Click Save and Close. If applicable, the PR can add workplan tracking measures by clicking the Add button. Selecting the module, intervention, and adding the key activity as free text. Translated versions can be added in the corresponding field. Click Save and Continue. The PR enters each milestone or target, including the criteria used to measure progress. Translated versions can be added in the corresponding field. Click Save and Close. The PR repeats this process to add all the relevant modules, interventions, indicators, and workplan tracking measures to complete the performance framework for the grant. Data quality checks have been integrated into the performance framework. The steps to attach and submit the grant documents will be covered in the next video.
So now I'm going to walk you through some of the key timelines that were applicable for the TRP Window 1 submission and some of the key milestones to plan for in the coming months. So today we are July, and the review of the window one, TRP window one submissions have been completed, and we are in the grant making process. So as we have mentioned earlier, if you haven't had a chance yet to contact your country team and start the discussions on the grant making for your respective grants, we highly advise and recommend you to do so as soon as possible. And this is to ensure that you have enough time to translate the recommendations from the funding request review in the grant making deliverables, of course, and ensure that grants the grant deliverables are submitted with quality for the GAC Grant Approvals Committee decision and subsequently board approval. Now, this becomes even more important for those of you who would have the new grants starting in January 2027. So as you can see from this timeline, the time is quite short. So I highly recommend you to engage with your country teams if you haven't done yet so to discuss the next steps with respect to your grant making process. Now, another critical point that takes place in parallel to the negotiation and preparation of the grant making deliverables is the implementation readiness here that you can see in the lane below. And what that means is that the PR is requested to ensure that the grant is really ready to start on the assigned date. So there are several requirements with respect to implementation readiness, as ensuring that URs have been assigned, the subrecipients have been selected, and for further information on those, please do refer to the operational policy note. Now, what is also important here is that once the GAC decision has taken place and the board is also recommending grant for signing, PR signs and CCM acknowledges the grant confirmation, and this is subject to, of course, to the GAC recommendation. And it is important also to ensure that you plan enough time for that milestone, particularly if we're looking towards end of the year. And we're looking into starting the new grants in January. Now, as a reminder, for the investment priorities request and program continuation submission pathways, which are by invitation only, there are no TRP review. However, all other milestones and timelines that I have just briefly walked you through are applicable here as well. Again, for further details, please do review the operational policy note and procedures, and liaise with your country team for guidance on the next steps if you haven't done so yet. Moving to the next slide. So here we are looking into the TRP window 2 submission. So the TRP window 2 takes place in between 24th of August and 5th of September, with the 27th of July submission deadline for the funding request. If you are working with your CCMs on the grant ready funding requests for TRP window 2 submission, the submission timeline is very, very soon, and we encourage you, of course, ensure that you have contacted your country team in case you have any particular questions with respect to the preparation of the forms or any other elements. And following the TRP review meeting, and we will start the grant making process again the moment that the funding request has been submitted. The PR will access and develop this and submit the final grant forms through the partner portal. So for those of you working with the grant ready funding request, now the process, as we saw, is very, very similar. The continuous country dialogue and negotiations do take place between the PR and the Global Fund. And of course, what is really important is to ensure that the documents and deliverables have been prepared with quality for the GAC decision, GAC recommendation for the board approval. And similarly, from what we have seen before, is that the timelines are quite short. If particularly you are starting your new grants in January 2027, please do ensure that you have liaised with your you have agreed on the next steps, and you have planned enough time to complete the required deliverables and milestones. Similarly here, implementation readiness and ensuring implementation readiness by the start of the new grant is key. We do advise you here again to take the preparation step for implementation readiness into consideration for your planning as well. Do please liaise with the country teams in case you have any questions, particularly with respect to the implementation readiness, and of course advise your team members that the timelines need to be considered for those cases for those grants that would start in January 27. Similarly here, for the investment priorities request and program continuation submission pathways, there is no TRP review, but other milestones and timelines that we have just discussed would also apply. All right, so with that, I will move us to the final segment, which is questions and answers. And this is just a brief recap of the resources that are available for you. The information session today has been recorded and will be published alongside with the slides on the Global Fund website. So here's a brief summary of the resources that are already available for you. To inform yourself. So the operational policy note, the operational procedures are available on the operational policy section. And of course, you have the grant making guidance with the key elements that are designed to help you and guide you throughout the process. So you have the GC8 essentials and accessing your GC8 allocation package, the country resources information sessions, and the video demos that we have seen today, and further video demos will be also published and will be made available. There are detailed guidelines and interactive guides that are available for the grant entity data. I take the opportunity to remind you to ensure that your team or maybe yourself have the right access rights to the partner portal and you're able to proceed with your submissions to the Global Fund. There are also the guidelines for the grant budgeting that support you for preparation of your budget, and the modular framework for GC8 is also available to support you with completing the performance framework. And of course, there are detailed guides available for you on how to complete the health product management tool in the partner portal with the manual, and of course, how to complete your performance framework in the partner portal. So all those details are, all those materials with the relevant details are available to you now, and there will be further information videos that will be published. They will be available to you as well. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you to my team and colleagues behind the screens, and thank you the participants for being there with us today. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your participation. Again, this info session will be recorded and alongside with the slides will be published on the Global Fund webpage for you to come back to if needed at later stage. So much. Have a good day, and until next time. Thank you.